let's deal with the origins of postmodernism. Now, postmodernism may be said to begin with pop art, and it tends to embrace much of what followed, including conceptual art, neo-expressionism, which we haven't gotten to yet, but we will, feminist art, as well as the young British artists of the 1990s. And really, postmodernism is, at its base, a reaction against modernism. So modernism is all about hierarchy, about accepting the opinion of an authoritative figure. It's about faith in the real, in science, in the observable, whereas postmodernism tends to subvert order. And it looks to spread things thin over a larger group. For example, a modernist view of the financial markets would be that banks are best because, of course, we need these authoritative figures, these financial experts to run the banks. The postmodern version would be Bitcoin, which spreads that risk and spreads it all out in this massive network where no one person really runs it. There's no expert in charge. Instead, it's just sort of market forces allowing it to happen. In postmodernism, we tend to see hyper-reality. We tend to see image saturation. We tend to see very fast images, things that we can pick up on quickly because that's sort of the world in which we live. We live in a world of social networks where you need to catch someone's attention in a second or two, and so postmodern work tends to do that. So modernism was generally based on this utopian vision of human life and society and a belief in progress. It assumed that certain ultimate universal principles or truths, such as those formulated by religion or science, could be used to understand or explain reality. For example, think of abstract expressionism. Or think of minimalism, where they're trying to strip away all of the cultural artifacts and references that we would see with an item, seeking out a universal truth because they believe there must be a universal truth. But in the postmodern world, there can be no universal truth, so we go from there. Everyone has their own reality. Everyone has their own truth. Modernist artists believe that by negating the subject and experimenting instead with form, technique, and process, that they could find a way of purely and simply understanding and reflecting the modern world. Like I said, they're looking for the universal. If modernism was based on idealism and reason, postmodernism is born of skepticism and a suspicion of reason. It challenged the notion that there are universal objective certainties or truths that will explain everything for everyone. Postmodern art tends to advocate that individual experience and interpretation of our own experience is more concrete than abstract principles and is the best way of understanding and responding to reality. So in other words, since we perceive our world on an individual basis, for each of us, our perception is a little different. Instead of looking for a universal that speaks a little bit to everyone, why not create something that speaks to everyone based on their own reality? Why not accept that principle that humanity and individual humans perceive their reality differently? While the modernists will champion clarity and simplicity, postmodernism embraces complex, often contradictory layers of meaning. You tend to find something that can be stripped apart. Now, the question is postmodernism over? Now, the 2009 Tate Triennial Exhibition claimed that the period defined as postmodernism had come to an end. In fact, it's increasingly the belief of philosophers and others that postmodernism has ended and that we've entered another period of time. Meta-postmodernism, post-postmodernism, there's a lot of different possible terms for it. But this idea that around 2010 or so, we're seeing a new culture developing, we just don't have enough information on it yet to really name it and define it. All I can say is that we're probably through most of postmodernism at this point.